Let's go live now to the federal member for Hinkler, Keith Pitt, talk about a few of the issues of the day. First up, drug testing welfare recipients. Matthias Cormann says he's open to politicians also being drug tested. That's what Jacqui Lambie has said. If you're going to require the unemployed to do it, well, politicians need to agree to it as well. Is that a good measure, a good compromise to get Jacqui Lambie across the line?
I don't have an issue with that at all, Kieran. Most of my working life has been spent in locations where you can be drug or alcohol tested while you're at work, whether that's in heavy construction, heavy industry or anywhere else. And those things have been put in place in consultation with unions and workers and others. It's been around for more than a decade. I just think this is a practical, common sense approach to a really tough issue.
So do you think that that's something that the party room will actually discuss? Will you bring it up with the Nats?
Look, I'm happy to talk about it. It's something that's been discussed internally before. Obviously, I can't talk about party room and what happens there, but certainly there are any number of us that have been in environments where this is just a normal part of everyday life. Every single Australian that gets in a car today will potentially be tested for drug and alcohol to make sure they're not affected, to ensure safety on the roads. And if you want to be ready for work, well, you have to be ready to go to a location where you may be tested for drugs and alcohol, because that's just a requirement of the job.
It's interesting Jacqui Lambie has said this, she'll only consider it. She could be the deciding vote. That's the reason we're giving her so much attention on this particular matter. But I guess other people would think that it's a fair enough cop that if you're going to expect the unemployed to be subjected to that standard, why shouldn't those who make the decisions do the same?
Well, Kieran, as I've said, I have no issues with that at all. There are many of us in the federal parliament for who this was every single day of working life, particularly if you're in the mine industry, heavy industry, where it's a substantially high-risk environment. We know that these changes make a difference for safety in the workplace. It's the reason they've been put in place in so many locations. We know the big difference it makes on our roads. It's just a reasonable, everyday, practical solution. And certainly I congratulate Senator Lambie for being open to that type of consideration. I think my colleagues would welcome it. I don't think it would be an issue.
Now, if we turn to this breaking news out of Melbourne that this Tamil asylum seeker family has been granted another extension to their injunction that won't be decided until September 18, the judge has said that's because of the extreme media pressure and public pressure on this case, that they want to make sure they are given due process. Do you think it is fair that this Tamil family should be allowed to stay in Australia, given that the community really has come out so strongly for them?
We all have community support for different immigration matters. And certainly I won't be commenting on the judicial approach and their decisions. I've seen what happens to my colleagues in other locations, and I want to respect the separation of powers. That's why it's there. But on that local issue, Ken O'Dowd has been advocating, because he's had constituents come to him and raise that matter with him, as any good MP would. But we all have tough, upsetting, difficult, traumatic immigration matters we deal with. We have to apply the law fairly and equally. My understanding is that this family has been told the whole way along that they were not refugees, that they would have to return. I mean, there's more than 1,000 individuals who were in a similar situation from Sri Lanka who have been returned. And I think the sooner that they take up that option, the sooner they can apply to come through the right path. And particularly for regional Australia and regional Queensland, where we do need more people who are out there and are willing to work in abattoirs and do some of those hard yards.
Keith Pitt, it's interesting, as you said, Ken O'Dowd, your colleague, in saying they should stay. Your former leader, Barnaby Joyce, believes they should be given compassionate, granted the right to stay under the compassionate grounds as well. Do you have similar families, similar situations in the seat of Hinkler, where people have integrated on bridging visas but still live in limbo?
We all have any number who are in different levels of the immigration process. But they are not ones that arrive by boat. We've been very clear that if you come to this country by boat, you will be returned if you're found not to be a refugee. We are sticking to that. I don't think it's unreasonable. And I note the comments from the Minister this morning that this has already been raised in Sri Lanka as another motivation for individuals to pay people smugglers to come to this country by the wrong path. And I certainly don't want to continue to encourage that sort of activity. We know where it leads us. So for those individuals who want to come to Australia to have a better life, as many do, they need to come through the right process. There are visas and categories available. I mean, we took 160,000 individuals on permanent migration in the last 12 months. So it's not that we are not a generous country. We are doing everything we possibly can. We're certainly doing our part.
When it comes to those migration levels, we have seen that the low number has been impacting some significant economic markers, including per capita recession figures. That's what Labor's been pushing. Do you think there should be an increase in the migration figures in particular to get more people to the regions?
Well, I think we need to manage those numbers better. My understanding is in 2017, there were some 170,000 individuals who settled in Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne. Now, that obviously adds to the difficulties with congestion and infrastructure needs, but in the regions, in some regions, they are absolutely crying out for more people. My understanding is my colleague in the Mallee and Webster, they've got an unemployment rate with a 3 in front of it. I'd love to have that here. It's something that we continue to work for. So we need to look at where we are sending those skilled migrants, where they can be of the best benefit and the biggest impact, and I think that is regional Australia.
Keith Pitt, thank you for taking the time to speak to us all the way from Bundaberg.
Great to be with you.